Everyone. I think we have everybody on the line. I'm still just waiting for a few more to show up. But basically, I just want to say hi and welcome. And thank you so much for attending our talent management webinar on how to reveal peer-nominated high potentials within your organization. Throughout this webinar, I'm going to be your host, Taylor Cleave. I'm actually the sales rep here at Maven 7 in the U.S. You'll see at the top of your screen that Zuzana Blau is the organizer of today's webinar. She's actually the head of marketing in Budapest, our headquarters station in Hungary. If you have any questions regarding any technical difficulties or any OrgMapper related issues or questions, she's going to be happy to assist you throughout the webinar. You have the option to raise your hand, or you can put it in the little chat feature. But hopefully everything goes smoothly. So we're going to plan on keeping the webinar about 60 minutes. We probably won't run over. We really want to keep this as interactive as possible. So throughout the presentation, we're going to have two guests. And through each presentation, you're going to get a poll that pops up. And we just ask you to participate in that and please fill it out. At the end of the webinar today, we're going to have a question and answer session. So please, at the end of the session, post your questions in the chat window, which is going to be on the left-hand toolbar. And we're going to get to every question at the end. So please feel free to post them in the chat feature section. Before we get started, for those of you who don't know, which I'm sure most of you do know a little bit about our background here at Maven 7, but we're actually a network research company with a vision to integrate the latest findings of network science into business applications. We're rooted in network science. Two of our founders are globally acclaimed network scientists. I'm sure some of you have heard, but of Albert-László Barabáshi and Tamás Vicsek, through whom we're lucky to have those really close working relationships with the prime academic think tanks of the discipline. And basically, based upon their work, we've developed OrgMapper, which is this online organizational network analysis tool, and it merges the methodologies of social network analysis and sociometry to support, facilitate, accelerate organizational development programs. Currently, right now, OrgMapper has 5 modules, and one of which is TalentMapper. And TalentMapper specifically is developed to aid in talent management initiatives by identifying all existing and previously hitting high potentials within the organization. So, with that being said, I want to introduce briefly Andres Vicsek, who is actually the co-founder here and the head of research at Maven 7. And if you didn't happen to notice the name earlier, as I mentioned, Tamás Vicsek, he is the son of Thomas. But he's also an acclaimed organizational psychologist, and he's responsible for the research and product development here at Maven 7. Following Andres' presentation, we're going to have 2 guest speakers today, one of which is Patty Anklam and Histon Bauer, who will bring you real-life case studies on talent management and their experiences. Basically, Hish is going to talk first, and she has a very strong consulting background. Over the past 12 years, she's actually worked for an international management consulting firm. She's worked with Accenture, PricewaterhouseCoopers. She's led numerous HR projects supporting organizational restructuring, large-scale system implementations in both the private and public sectors. She's also worked on multiple talent management projects with various assessment tools, and today she's going to be introducing you to this new and exciting methodology around talent management. Patty, who will be the second guest speaker today, is actually an independent consultant and an acknowledged expert in social and organizational network analysis. Her clients include leading global corporations, government research agencies, and nonprofit organizations. Before getting into consultancy, she actually held key knowledge management positions at Nortel Networks and HP. And I'm sure some of you on the call, have spoke to her before and know her, and also as well as His. But I think as we get started, without further ado, I'm going to hand this over to Andres. I think if you want to take over right now. Or actually, Hishk, I think Hishk is going to speak first.
Thank you, Taylor. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Okay, hello everyone. It's very exciting. I believe there's many of you on the line in different parts of the world. I'm talking to you from Budapest in Hungary, and My talk will be today on the introduction of talent management, of course, and talent identification processes in particular, because that's what we're zooming in to give you an introduction before Andras will give you more detail and show you examples of our tool TalentMapper. So really, what I want to, start with is that the top reasons for organizations to identify high-performing employees are increased demand for future leaders and retaining key talent. That's really top of list, top of mind at the moment. And there is research that states that organizations should use a formal process to properly identify this talent. And this research also states that only 50% of organizations have such a formal process, and that will probably mean that others do it more or less informally and ad hoc. And even yesterday I was reading an article that suggested that companies consistently, and yes, it said consistently, choose the wrong people for promotion. So I thought that was an interesting statement. But even in my own experience with talent identification projects, I was often faced with doubts around getting it right. Were we able to identify all talents in the organization, or have we perhaps overlooked people? Did we use the best criteria? Our process is so time-consuming and often paper-based. Is our process of identifying talent objective and transparent enough? Now perhaps you recognize some of these struggles. So we're about to show you the TalentMapper way of what we call revealing peer-nominated high potentials. And we believe that this tool will address some of the important issues I just mentioned, and it will help you work towards a more comprehensive and objective way of mapping talent in your organization. Now I'm not saying that you need to be unhappy with the process that you have in place before you can start using TalentMapper, nor that you get rid of your current diagnostic tools to find talent. I would like to really emphasize that you can see TalentMapper as a complementary, an additional tool in the talent identification process. But first, let us look at the most common talent diagnostics. Please one slide back. If we can go one slide back to where we were. Because on the slide you'll see the round circle with the talent diagnostic tools, and they can be in the form of face-to-face discussions or online questionnaires, written tests, team exercises. And I guess this diagram shows you the common range of methods that are being used by employers to identify talent. So I'll briefly explain them. If we start in clockwise with the 360-degree feedback, this is a performance appraisal system that gathers feedback on the individual from a number of sources. So feedback is being asked from supervisors, peers, external customers, and also often self-assessment. Then we have knowledge assessments. These measure the individual knowledge base, and to establish how much does an individual know and whether they can apply it to achieve key objectives. Personal development plans is the next one. They're plans that outline personal and educational and career development activities. Then performance appraisal, also very commonly used, widely used. There are generally an appraisal meeting, and it's an opportunity for individuals and their line managers to review performance and to talk about future developments. And then there is psychometric testing, which assesses whether employees have the attitudes and the behaviors required to progress their careers. So to ensure they reach their full potential in the future. Now around 50% of employers are moderately satisfied with the talent identification process. even if they would use all these diagnostic tools. And they're also moderately confident that they are able to develop this talent. So I guess there is some room for improvements for us, for all of us, by the way. But first, we would like to do a short poll asking you about the diagnostics that you or your organization uses. So you'll see on the screen listed the diagnostic tools, and I'm going to ask you to select one or more, or all of them, the ones that you use, and submit your answer to us, please. We wait a couple of seconds to get the results.
Okay, so you will see the polls later. Now, what you see is there are some challenges that organizations experience during talent management and succession planning, and these are, these criteria that you are listed here. I don't know if his case is back in the call because we had some difficulties here. Hiske, do you hear us? Okay, so I will continue because it seems that we've lost Hiske at the moment. So as you can see here on this this slide, there are several challenges that organizations experience during the identification of high potentials and the succession planning processes. For instance, there are too many criteria, or there's too much time required to get the information needed, or there's a focus on current performance metrics rather than on the future potential of the individuals and so on. And basically what we're saying with TalentMapper is that you can use some kind of totally different information that you previously used, in addition, of course, with your existing data, to get a full picture of who should be the high potentials included in your processes. First of all, what you need for this is to have employee data. Who are the individuals in the organizations you want to measure? What are their meaningful characteristics? It can be any KPIs. It can be what hierarchy level they are in, what is their location, and so on. Then the next phase is that we tailor the questions to certain attributes that we want to discover and reveal for succession planning. We will talk about this later when we go into the more details of the methodology. And then there's the black box where everyone fills out the questionnaire, and at the end the result is you get very precise maps of the informal connections and relations within the organizations, of everything that affects how things are done at the organization, how knowledge sharing is taking place, who are the experts, who are the potential leaders, and so on. So I don't know if we have Hiska back, maybe.
Yes, I'm really sorry. I was muted, so I couldn't do anything.
Sorry.
Thank you for taking over. Thank
so
you.
I can go back if there's any additional things you want to.
Yeah, I didn't hear your story, so why don't I tell my story, and then the audience have both our ways of explaining the diagram that they're looking at. Because I think the diagram, if we could just quickly go back to the challenges. So yeah, so I was talking about companies being unsatisfied or unsure about their talent identification, and this list actually shows what are some of the challenges that cause that. It can be mostly because there's unknown or too many criteria. That means that there's a lack of clear focus on exactly what characteristics the organization believes its talent pools should possess. And another challenge is the time involved with the process, often quite lengthy, and a lot of effort goes into it. And TalentMapper addresses some, but not all of these challenges, I must say. In particular, it's a quick talent diagnostic process leading to a result in a time frame of only a few weeks. And we also deal with the last bullet point of the subjectivity. And now I'd like to move to the overview picture of how TalentMapper works, and Andras will talk through in more detail and is showing you actual examples also of the networks. But let me tell you how I see that, I guess, in very simple terms, our tool works. First of all, you see the name OrgMapper in the middle under the blue box, and that is our full suite of organizational diagnostics. So TalentMapper is one of the 5 modules of OrgMapper, but in principle they all work the same. And think of our analysis method as the blue box in the middle. This is our X-ray machine, so to speak. When you go to the doctor to check out what causes the pain in your hand, he will probably send you to a radiologist who's imaging to diagnose injuries seen within the body. Now we use the same principle of diagnosis. So on the left, where the hand would go into the X-ray machine and out comes the X-ray on the other side, with TalentMapper we have the questions on the left, the questions that measure talent. So we don't focus so much on skills, knowledge or competencies, but we try to measure actual behavior that the talented person displays. So we ask questions, and the employees who fill out the survey, because the questions are wrapped up in the survey, in a questionnaire, but they will not be able to assess themselves. They can only select the names of the colleagues when they answer the question. So our tool is based on peer assessment and not self-assessment. Now, examples of talent questions are: which of your colleagues are best at motivating their co-workers? Who is capable of making the best decisions in critical situations? Or whom do you most often turn to for professional advice? We have a master list of questions that can be customized to specific needs of the organization. And the survey with the talent questions is sent to a large group of employees to fill out, potentially the whole organization. So on the left of the blue box, we gather certain characteristics of employees that are meaningful to the organization. So think of role, department, hierarchy level, geographical location. You can also think of numbers of years working for the organization, expertise area, gender, and we can also include certain performance indicators. So anything that is relevant to describe your workforce goes in. So what goes into the blue box are the characteristics of the employees plus the answers to the talent questions, and out comes the talent network on the right-hand side. I know this sounds a little bit like magic, but we can assure you that there is a sophisticated data analysis going on in the blue box. But the talent network presented here is simplified and illustrative, because the real one is system generated, or the real ones I should say, because there are multiple views. And they look more complex, yet clean and easy to read. So the network basically consists of nodes that represent the identified talents and connectors that indicate the value and the strength of the relationship, so the arrows. So it's the relationship that these talents have with others in the organization. So it actually shows how well are they connected, recognized, and appreciated by their colleagues. Now, similar to the outcomes of other talent diagnostic tools, you can also use our talent network results for your talent development strategies, such as the learning programs, the coaching, the mentoring, and the job rotations that you have in place. So, summarizing the power of network analysis, we think using a network approach can improve high potential selection. On the next slide, please. Because it provides organization-wide results and it's fast, it can also increase the perception of fairness and impartiality within the organization. So we think, really focus on the objectivity. And because talents are nominated by their colleagues, this can improve the promotion of the right people and also reduce high potential dropout rates, which organizations nowadays have to deal with. And now, Andras, it's over to you for some really insights into examples of how our networks are being revealed.
Yeah, thank you for the great introduction and giving focus to this area, because I think it's very important that there is a tool and there is an opportunity to identify hidden high potentials using social mapping, and I think you've talked a lot about why this is important. I will talk more about how this works. What I will show you now is an example taken from nature, and this actually is a study which has been conducted by the research team behind us at Aalto University. They did a very, very exciting experiment with homing pigeons. What they did is they put miniature GPS receivers on the back of the pigeons and collected data on how they found their way back home. And what they were really interested in is whether there's a clear hierarchy within the group. Who is actually leading the flock? Who's the one who's showing the direction? Is there some kind of leader who is going behind whom? And they, just from the data, as you will see, they visualize the actual data here. So you will be able to see how these pigeons were actually flying. They were able to show. Here on the left side, you see a hierarchy. Each node represents a pigeon and the followers of that pigeon. Here you see that on top of the hierarchy, there's the red node, the red pigeon here. But if you look more into what's happening, it seems that the yellow pigeon is in front. almost all the time. But actually, when they were observing the data and did the statistics, it turned out that actually the red pigeon was the one who is always showing their direction to the yellow pigeon, which meant that the yellow pigeon always went back a few meters to see which direction the red was actually going, and then he stood in front of the group and became the leader to push forward in that direction. So what we see here is basically an example of how hidden influencers can, lead a group in a direction, and sometimes, the person or someone in front of the group who is very visible as a leader might not actually be the one who is leading the direction for the group. And I think this applies very much not only in nature but in all social systems. And another important aspect of communities such as organizations is, of course, you have a formal organization where you have people who are put into different boxes, they have different labels, they have their different departments or hierarchy levels. On the other hand, if you want to know how they're actually influencing each other, you don't know that from your corporate data. What you know is how they're performing, who's sitting in which department, who's on the top of the former hierarchy. On the other hand, if you look at this example, this is an IT company. We have the same set of people who we saw on the previous slide. You see that Tom is the leader of this organization. Then you have the three managers of the three different units. Peter is the head of sales. Paul is the head of the project team, who is actually building IT systems. This team, sales team, is selling the project. And here you see the maintenance people. If you look here, what the lines represent actual connections where they were pointing to each other in an online survey that they need to communicate with each other. If you just look at this for a moment, you will already see very interesting patterns of missing links or inefficiencies in communication. But I think for us, one of the most important things you see here with Paul is that Paul is connected to his senior management members, which is great, of course. On the other hand, there's no connection with his own team. So they're not saying that they need to communicate with him a lot. He's not communicated with them in a lot of times. So if we would be interested whether Paul is capable of actually pointing to people in his team who he feels are high potentials, I think he might be missing some people because he doesn't have a good overview of his own people. So this is one important thing we should keep in mind. On the other hand, here we have Liz, who's definitely a very influential person in this group. She's organizing a lot of things. She's sharing a lot of information between the two teams. She's holding together the sales team. If she's actually leaving the organization, what you see is communication will immediately fall apart, and the information and the network will be fragmented. So these are the things we have to keep in mind when we're talking about social systems and communities, is that, of course, we have a formal structure. On the other hand, there's a totally different layer, which is the actual informal network structures that are how people are communicating and influencing each other. And if we want to think of succession planning, if you want to know what the people who we see are, the future of our company, and we want to give them a lot of attention and a lot of responsibility, we need to know, how they're influencing others within the organization, and not only use, traditional measures, but to add this information as well. So what we're saying is of course we need to have the types of metrics that Hiska described in her presentation, 360 feedback, the performance appraisals, all the KPIs of actual performance. On the other hand, we're saying when you want to choose the people who you want to make leaders of tomorrow, you want to choose the ones who are actually, leading, already are in a position where they're influencing others. How we can do that is measure all of these aspects of their social behavior. Are they influencing innovation in the company? Are they motivating others? And what does their teamwork look like? Are they driving other people? What is their learning capabilities and so on? Once we have this information, we can, use this to confirm the people who we selected, whether they are the right ones, or even add new people who maybe we just missed. They were actually the red pigeons. The ones who you don't see in front, maybe you're missing out on them because they're just doing their work, communicating with a lot of people. You might not be even able to see them, and we have to reveal this. And of course, after the survey, you get a profile of each individual, which shows the number of people who nominated this person for a certain question. Here you see two profiles. So you see the same set of dimensions, but at two different scores here. For instance, in this case, if I try to compare these two people, I see that there's, in this case, control priority means there's a question about who you turn to for advice before making. If you have a problem with priorities, you don't know which tasks to focus on. It looks like this is a person who is very good in organizing and making quick decisions on priorities. On the other hand, this person on the left seems to be someone who is still strong in this, but maybe he's not that strong in leading the way with priorities. On the other hand, he or she is very strong in innovation and very strong in initiating new ideas and new ways of doing things. They're both good in strategy, and one of them, who is of course the one who is more the initiator of innovation, is also more supporter of different types of innovations. So you get basically very similar results to a 360 feedback, but the way you get this is through nominations, the number of people who selected that person for that question, and then from this we can compare the results of a person to the average, which you see here with the triangle. So you will be able to see, like, this is a very influential person only in the prioritizing tasks area, but not in the informal connections part. And you will get not only the influence scores, but also areas that you can use for the development plans as well. How we do this is that we have the online tool that Hiska mentioned, which is called OrgMapper. It's a really easy to use online interface where you can visualize the network of influence. You can see who are the nodes in the network, how influential they are in the group, and which group they have an influence on. And besides this, of course, you can have the metrics, put them into order. You are looking for a person who's really innovative for a certain program. Then you can select them through the filters and through the list that you can generate from the system itself. And one other area I wanted to talk about, which is also included in these reports, is the embeddedness of high potentials and talent, which mean that there are studies that show that people who are already integrated in the social network and the social connections, so the community of the management level that they are planning to move this person to, so they are already built connections, are already collaborating with more senior managers, then results show that the probability of them being successful in this new role, in this new team, is higher than for those who don't have this type of embeddedness in the higher level management that they are going to be promoted to. This is important information. Once you have identified your high potentials, you can look at how embedded they are in the higher management levels. Who are the ones you need to still put additional effort into integrating them, and who you need to put together for projects. For instance, who are the ones who will probably have less problems in integrating. And again, just an example of what happens when you are looking into these types of networks, and you are looking into some kind of expertise you want to use for your high potential identification. Here, what you see is a financial consulting firm's network of employees. Each node here, whether it's red, whether it's blue, is an employee who answered the questionnaire. Sorry, there were two questions. First, there was a question about who is the most acknowledged professional in your field. Well, the people who got the most nominations from others, so the top 10%, were represented with blue nodes. So the blue nodes are the experts who others said have the most experience or professional knowledge in their area. On the other hand, they received another question which was about who you ask for advice. Who do you turn to for professional advice regarding your daily work? The blue lines represent these connections where this individual here is asking another person. So each arrow is pointing to someone who they're actually asking for advice. So what we're expecting to see here is we are going to see experts who probably everyone is saying that they are very good at what they're doing, and they're the most acknowledged experts. On the other hand, we will see people who are, overused. Too many people are using their knowledge, and they will probably, burn out in a few years. And we'll be also able to see experts who are not accessible to others, and others are not using their knowledge. So this is what you see here. There's an expert here, a blue node. Other people are saying that he's very acknowledged. Usually these are the experts that the management sees, because they know he's very good in that area. He's an IT expert. He's a financial expert, whatever his area is. On the other hand, what he's not seeing is that other people within the group are actually not using his knowledge, or not turning to him. He's not influencing this group. The other type of person you see here is somebody who again people acknowledge as somebody with high level of expertise, but for this person you see that there are like tons of arrows coming in, which mean that these are each one person who is asking this person every day to give advice, which means that at the end of the day he will be very overloaded with questions, probably working 16 hours a day, gets burned out, and will leave in half or one year's time, and you're losing actually one of your greatest experts. So when you're thinking about who are the high potentials and who are the ones you should be focusing on with succession planning, you have to keep these things in mind, because you will have people who are experts, and probably their manager will say that he's the best at what he's doing, so why not we include him in the high potential program. On the other hand, he might be a person who is not really sharing his knowledge and not really influential in this this group. And also you can keep in mind whether you have a high potential who is overloaded, and you should be looking into how you can decrease this overload. And one other thing you see here is probably someone who managers don't even recognize yet, because the group hasn't replied that this person is really most acknowledged professional in his or her field. On the other hand, already a lot of people are using this person's knowledge. So if I probably as a manager, I would be surprised that, oh, I didn't know that this person is like this good at what he's doing and these many people are using his knowledge. So maybe I would also look into whether I should include this person in a high potential pool as well. And one other important thing, again back to succession planning, is look into who are the people who are most likely to retire within 2 years. And then look into how much connections and how much knowledge they are actually going to take away from the organization. Because here you can see, if you take these yellow nodes out from the system, the yellow ones are the people who others say are the biggest experts. You immediately see that some of your greatest experts and go-to people are actually going out of the organization. So you have time for succession planning, looking into how I can give this person additional training to make this person more acknowledged in the organization, give him more visibility, give him training, and so on. Another important area which we see is of course how we can keep our talent in the organization. Of course, bringing in someone from out of the company costs always much more than trying to keep a person and motivate a person. This happens a lot in shared service centers. We worked several times in this area, and in this case that I'm showing here, the situation was that they actually had problems with finding new high potentials, because they had to speak a lot of languages and also had to have financial background, and the work was actually very routine work, so they got burned out, and they were trying to see whether they could give them like career plans, motivation, succession planning to keep them in the organization. To have less expenses, of course, with recruitment, but also to have motivated staff. Here what we used is, you can see that we received the performance appraisal data from the company, from their HR systems, and we identified the outstanding people, which are these dark brown nodes. They were happy to see that most of them were very much embedded in this network, which is the network of trust, actually. So people are connected with each other, and they say that they can work very well with the other, and they have trust in the other, and so on. So people on the periphery mean that they don't really have a friendship or trust connection in this group. And again, research shows if you don't have a connection within the community, or you don't have an emotional tie, the probability of you leaving is much higher than for those who are actually embedded and held by others in this network. So what they did is they identified, all of these high potentials, but they were started to focus more on the ones who were on the periphery, just to understand what is causing them to get pushed out on the periphery, how they can connect them with others, who they're open to connect with more, how they can put them to different projects, put them into additional succession and career management plans. Again, as I said, it's an important area where succession planning is very important. This is also a shared service center, where the aim was to include social influence in the assessment process for their multi-year talent and succession planning programs. And here what we did, we used, again, OrgMapper and TalentMapper online surveys to identify the talents from the peer nominations. And what they received is real, true insights on who are the high potentials that are less visible to managers that they should include in their high potential pool, who are the high potentials already identified by managers, but who have less peer influence, so maybe they need different types of trainings and different types of involvement. Also, it was good for them to have a confirmation of the people who were identified by the managers as high potentials, but also to see that, yeah, they are actually very influential within the community as well. Also to pinpoint who are the high potentials who are, you know, too overloaded and might be might be a great risk for them to leave the organization, to plan with this and help them to be able to decrease this type of overload, and also to build a pool of people who are not only able to take part in the local organizations, you know, talent management, but also be open to involved in the global high potential pool of the company. And so here again we would have a poll now, and what I would like to ask you, you see it on the screen, you know, do you think you might be overlooking hidden talents with your current identification process? What we mean by this is that, of course, I'm sure that, you know, every organization has a very good and very sophisticated way of identifying high potentials. But let's see whether you feel that you might be missing something. We have 50% of the votes. It's growing. Let's see what's the end result. Yeah, we still have a few people who are waiting. Okay, so here we see the results. This shows that actually you're saying that more than, you know, 73%, so almost 3/4 of the people here present say that you do feel that there might be people who you are overlooking with current metrics and current identification processes. Okay, so if we move on, I just wanted to share one additional example, which is more about identifying external talent. Here in this case, of course, organizations are also interested in how they can bring in and identify talents from external communities. And here, in this case, what we do is first we have a talent identification process where we find and map established and future experts. How we do this is we collect data from social networks, from you know, expert blogs, from all sorts of forums and Twitter and so on, and publication networks. And from these networks, we draw up the network of influence in the community, identify the key opinion leaders. And once we have this, we also show how you could reach out to this person, where is the, you know, shortest route to the identified talent. And also we can, of course, build the database from these identified key influencers who were coming out from these analytics. So if we move on, Taylor already introduced Patty, but I'm really happy to have Patty with us on the call because she's a true expert in knowledge management and the application of organization network analysis for all sorts of organizational challenges. And she will help us to understand two cases where she was applying network analysis in knowledge management and for you know, succession or the promotion of different people. So thank you, Patty, for taking part in the call.
Oh, thank you, Andras. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm actually just going to show one story of a professional services organization that had 3 business units and two different sales-focused units. And they were really finding that there was not sufficient communication going across the departments. It was really important. It's a very high-tech environment that people had a good understanding of what each other were doing. And we did a social network analysis to uncover where there were gaps and potential connections. And one of the things that's really important about understanding cross-organizational communications and who is talking to who across organizations is that diversity of contacts is extremely important. As this quotation here is from Ron Burt, who's one of the leading researchers in social network analysis, and that is that people who cross boundaries, who are at the intersection of different groups, are the ones who are at risk of having better ideas, but also to repeat some of what Hiskey said earlier, is that they're people who actually can transmit knowledge and communicate across organizations. And so when we did this network analysis with this organization, you can see here that there are some groups that are not communicating across boundaries at all, and some groups even that have sparser networks within themselves. So in looking at how to address a network analysis, there's always the question of, well, what can you do about it? Okay, what are the ways to start to improve the communication across boundaries? And one of those things is to try to find the hidden talent, find the people who are already enmeshed or embedded in multiple networks, in multiple social worlds within the organization. So what we're able to do by using a combination of metrics that come out of the information is to identify what we call the personal individual networks of specific individuals, so we can see how diverse those individuals are in their own networks, as a way to see where we might identify people who can help us work across boundaries. So if we go to the next slide, we look at a couple of people in this network to contrast what their networks look like. We can kind of see hidden in here. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, so we have this person we call AB. If you look back at the previous slide, AB is connected to people in almost all of the other groups. His high level of connectivity and is connected to people at all levels in the hierarchy. And by contrast, if you look at another person down here, if you look at the very bottom of the lower map, this person called DC, this is DC's personal network. These are all the people that he communicates with on a regular basis. And you see that he's only connected to one person outside of his own organization. Fortunately, it's AB, because if you look at AB's network up there on the top, he's extremely well connected. So by identifying this talented person who really had a gift of working cross boundaries and transmitting technical information across the groups, the organization was able to enhance his position by giving him a promotion and making him responsible for communication and sales working across boundaries. So this is another take on the importance of understanding the profiles of individuals and talents in the organizations, and another way that we can use social network analysis using their tools to identify who those people are. So I think we're off to Hiskey now.
Thank you very much, Patty, for sharing this really great practical example. It's always really good to hear how it's being applied in an organizational setting. And yeah, in wrapping up this webinar, let me take you through the main takeaway messages. I would really like you to remember 4 things. A TalentMapper project involves every employee in the organization. It visualizes a clear talent network which is composed in a comprehensive and an objective manner. It identifies these hidden talents in addition to the existing list of high potentials that you already have. And after all, there is more talent, or there might be more talent in your organization than management is aware of. And it reveals talents who are respected and work well with others. So peer-nominated talents who can count on the support of their colleagues are better positioned to succeed in higher level roles. And with this concluding statement, I would like to open up a short discussion. I think we have a couple of minutes left, and give you an opportunity to share your reaction or ask us a question. So please submit your questions.
Yeah, it would be great if, everyone, you should have a chat feature over in your little toolbar up to the left-hand corner. And if you just want to submit your questions to there, and, Andres, Hish, or Patty, whoever it's directed to, we'll be happy to answer them. So we'll just wait a few seconds, just give this a minute for the questions to roll in, and then we'll get started on the answer portion of it.
Okay, so we already have some questions here. First, we have a question here. When using OrgMapper, do you, meaning Maven 7, provide help to the company to set up the questionnaire? Yeah, thank you for the question. So there are two ways how you can run such a survey. First of all, you can become certified to use OrgMapper. You go through a training, how to use the system itself, and then it's a do-it-yourself application. It's easy to use. So basically you learn how to use the system, but of course we support you if you need additional help. The other way is if you want to run a survey but just want us to manage the whole process, then that's a different type of project, but then in this case we help you along the way for the full time of the project. Yeah, we have another question here. How can you translate the utility of OrgMapper into return on investment to support the head of HR to face this question from the CEO? Yeah, that's a typical question, of course, that you can expect. I've read that you say yourself that a big part of the result can be gained also by other methods, may not in such a fancy way. So how to convince the budget owner to permit the purchase of OrgMapper? Yeah, that's I think a great question. So for instance, we saw the slide with, and I might even go back to it. Here it was this case. So for instance, if you imagine that you need to spend your HR training and development budgets on people. The logical choice would be to, so you have somebody who you identified with your methodologies that he's an expert. You would be sending this person to training. On the other hand, you see that this person will not share his knowledge within the team, so your spend money will not have a return within the whole community. On the other hand, if you spend a training budget on this rising star person who maybe the manager didn't even identify, then you will not only have somebody who is really motivated because he's going to be taking part in some kind of talent program, but also you see that you are having a bigger return on investment because you're spreading the knowledge within this larger community who lack this type of expertise. So you can show clear numbers that yes, if you choose the right people, you at the end will have better return because people will be more influential, more spreading this knowledge, more accessible to others. Which will return at the end, of course. There's another question: is there a cap for the number of employees that can be analyzed with the tool? Well, we had projects where we had more than 20,000 people involved. So it's capable of handling really large number of people. It's not a problem.
So real quick, I just want to chime in here and just tell all the participants right now that if you actually want to raise your hand, there's a little icon up at the top that looks like a little hand, and you can raise your hand and pose a question, and we'll unmute you if you want to ask it publicly to everybody that's attending the webinar. And, you know, same thing if you just want to pose the question and then talk, we can unmute you. So please feel free to use that application right now, and we'll answer these questions accordingly.
Yeah. So is there an? Yeah, we have another question here. Do you have a sample narrative client report you can share with us? Yeah, we have sample reports. You know, if you just we will follow up with everyone with the materials, and then if anyone would like to access additional information like sample reports, then we can share that as well, of course. Okay, so I think we've already went a little bit over time. So thank you everyone for your time and your participation and your questions as well. Hiske already summarized the main messages of what we wanted for you to take away. So we will send the recording of the seminar, the webinar to everyone, also with the presentation, and please feel free to contact us if you have any questions or requests from our side. And have a nice day, everyone.